Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's press conference. We will start directly with questions, so please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and we will take questions in the order that they come in.
Oops.
Troy?
Yeah, Coach. Going back to that final drive towards the end of the game, I'm sure when you got the ball, 2-minute drill, you're thinking touchdown at the start. Is there any point in that situation where you generally start to maybe adjust to going towards field goals? Kind of take us through that thought process a little bit.
Yeah, what we talked about in the huddle that a field goal puts it into overtime and a touchdown wins it. So we're definitely hoping to get in field goal range, but be able to take a shot at a couple of shots at the end zone.
Thank you, John.
Coach, same drive question related to that. I want to say 3 or 4 passes in a row to Ellick, and I get the fact that you don't want to, or that they don't want to give one up over the top. Does success like that, sort of short burst success like that, make you think about the next week and what your calls might be as regards to Ellick? We know he has a broad route tree, but
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Each team's a little bit different, and then what they do in a game. Throughout a game, their game plan, and then how they adjust and change it's always one of those things where you have to adjust to. So they're going to they're watching tape and coming up with a plan. And then if it works, they'll stick with it. If it's not, then they'll start to adjust. And then things typically change a little bit in the 2-minute drives as well. People have 2-minute defenses, and they'll alter those things a little bit. So it's kind of you have what you do, and then you got to adjust accordingly.
Thank you, John. Steve?
Or just kind of the generic quarterback usage question. Do you still plan? I read that, that putting Ashton in was part of the plan, and you just stuck with him because he was hot.
Right.
Is that kind of the way you plan to go the rest of the season, or might some guy become the number one guy at one point?
Yeah. Going into the game, we were going to play them both, and then it just kind of happened that Ash was playing really well and making plays, so we stuck with him. But everything is open each week. We're trying to find a way to score more points and win football games. So this is our first day of practice today for the week, and both those guys will get reps along with Justin Lamson, and then we'll see how it goes and the competition goes in the week, and they're all ready to play.
I mean, you've coached obviously with the 2 quarterback system, and you've coached with one. In a perfect world, which would you prefer?
Yeah, I've had success with both. If you have one guy that can do it all, I think that's a pretty good deal. But there is a positive to having 2 guys that you feel like you have a little bit more depth if something happens to somebody and they're injured, for a short time or even for the year. You feel like you have a little depth. But I think obviously the ideal situation is for one guy to be able to stay and play in, and then feel really good about his backup. But you just try to adjust accordingly.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Harold?
Hi, Coach. This is your first 9 a.m. Pacific time game this season. I know you've had a lot of games on the Eastern time zone, but is your preparation or how you guys are traveling or anything impacted by the early start?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked to our guys about this week trying to be a little bit more on the East Coast time in terms of going to bed early, like at 9 p.m., which I know is sometimes difficult for college students who are doing homework and getting things done. But trying to do that, we'll go out early on Thursday, and they're going to wake up really early on Saturday morning, and hopefully throughout the week the process of getting to bed early will allow them to get up early. Now they're used to doing things early in the morning with our routine, so that part of it's still 3 hours. So they'll be they'll be getting up really early for the pregame meal, and kicking off at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time is definitely something that I've never done. But we'll be up for the task.
Ben?
Yeah, Coach. This is kind of among the world I'm in. I'm kind of done with the most kind of hardcore Stanford football fans. My board day in, day out. What would you? A lot of them are kind of concerned about maybe the rate at which the rebuild is happening. You guys had 4 blowout losses. You lose a close game to Wake Forest. Maybe you had a real chance to win. Just what would your message be to those fans that are maybe concerned at the pace at which this rebuild is happening?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. So, when we first arrived here, we lost 17 players in the transfer portal, 13 of them starters, 6 of them offensive linemen. And then we lost another 6 starters on this past cycle. So, we've lost a lot of our experienced players, and have had to replace them with young guys. And I think we're doing a good job of bringing in young players. But some of them are playing earlier than you'd like them to, but that's just part of the process. What I think we have to, as an institution and as a program, we got to really figure out the best way to sustain our model of retaining our student athletes, as we're losing them, and they're very hard to replace with experienced players the way we're set up. We are not set up right now at this present time to bring in players as transfers or graduate students, which is different than every school in Power 4. So we're trying to figure that out and how to do that. And as of right now, we're doing it with young players. And when you lose a number of players like we have to injury, and you're playing young guys that are just out of high school, you're going to have some growing pains. So I would say that the answer would be, we got to figure it out as a university and a program, how to keep and retain our students, and we got to continue to recruit and develop our players. But that's a big question that we're wrestling with right now, and trying to figure out how to be able to compete at this Power 4 level without bringing in transfer players, which is difficult, and it's shown itself to be very difficult when you're losing older players and not being able to bring in ones to replace them. You end up having a one-way drain where you're losing older players and playing with really young ones.
Awesome. Thank you.
You got it.
John?
Coach, both last year and this year, I've been so impressed with the opposition quarterbacks most weeks. And there's another good one that you face on Saturday. He's a true freshman, CJ Bailey. His throwing numbers are really good. Seems like they've relied on that even more here in recent weeks. Talk about how this true freshman has really helped NC State.
Yeah, he's a young guy that was that came in for the injured quarterback, and he's really improved. So you see his confidence, his understanding of the system. He's got good length and arm ability, and he can get himself out of trouble. And he's improved, which will happen, as a young player, as you play in more games. And they've done a good job of utilizing his skill set. So, he's an impressive young man. Obviously, he was a kind of a highly recruited guy that has had the opportunity to play early on. And he's going to be a really good player for a number of years.
Steve?
After going to the travel, but not necessarily the time difference, just that this is your 4th trip across the country. And a lot of people were asking me before the season about both you guys and Cal, how's it going to affect you? And I said, for the most part, they're college kids, they adapt. But I said, where it might come into play is the 4th, or in Cal's case, the 5th trip across the country. Is there a concern now that, that this is the 4th one, that it might have the 3 before might have taken a toll? Or do you look at it, hey, we've been through it, the 4th one won't be any harder anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a concern that you have to deal with, and the early kick is definitely a concern. You don't dwell on it, but it's something that obviously is kind of out of the norm of what you're used to. The other thing that has been a scenario that may be even more difficult is, we'll have played 5 teams this year that have a bye before they play us. Now, 2 of them we have a bye, but this is the 3rd opponent, North Carolina State, that had 2 weeks this year to prepare for us, which I got to be honest, I don't know if I've ever lost a game where we had 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent. It gets you healthy, gives you time to recover, gives you 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent while they're preparing for somebody else in the first week. So that was kind of disappointing to see that the schedule kind of laid out that way. And then, yeah, obviously playing 3 hours, it's a challenge as well. But honestly, the buys for 3 opponents that before you is, to me, more concerning.
Understood.
John?
Coach, I'll flip my freshman quarterback question to your true freshman. That's Elijah Brown. He had such success in high school, and yet I imagine you will say that, as a true freshman playing quarterback at the Power 4 level, there's a lot to learn. Can you take us through his growing pain? He was so good against Cal Poly, and then it seemed like maybe Wake Forest was taking advantage with a rush on him or something and making it mucky in the pocket. I mean, would you kind of take us through the growing pains of a talented freshman and the up and down part of it?
Yeah, I think, like you said, he played extremely well against Cal Poly and did some really good things coming in against SMU. I think it was a little rougher start for him against Wake Forest, where he missed a couple passes early. He got pressured on the interception where the protection broke down immediately, and he got hit as he was throwing. And then he's typically really good at going through his progression, and maybe missed a couple of those, but that doesn't change how we feel about him as a player. Obviously, like you said, there's growing pains, there's experience that comes, and he'll learn from that, and the potential is there and the ability is there. He's going to be a really good player, and I know he wasn't satisfied with his play against Wake Forest, but he's going to be a good player.
Harold?
In your previous answer, you said this will be your first kind of 9 a.m. body clock game. I'm just wondering, are you talking to other coaches? Like, how are you kind of developing best practices for how to get through this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Most coaches have said that, just try to get them on the East Coast clock time, as much as possible. And then you try to let them sleep in as much as possible on Saturday. So you do the majority of your work that you would do on a game day the evening before. So those are kind of the things that we're doing. Other than that, you got to be ready to play, and I think our guys will, like I said, they're usually up pretty early, so we should be ready to play. And it's just a kind of a unique thing to wake up immediately, and we're kind of typically waiting around all day, doing meetings and stuff, just trying to pass the time before you play. But this will definitely be unique.
Yeah, it looks like Ryan Butler had a solid performance for you guys. Had some nice runs. Just talk about kind of what you could get out of him down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, Brian did a nice job coming in, and he's been somebody that's been around us for 2 years and has learned and improved. And I thought he did a really good job coming in and filling in for Micah and making some big plays and doing a nice job in protection. So he'll be somebody that we'll be leaning on, the last 4 games.
Troy?
Kind of along those lines, in the running back room, any update on Cedric Irvin? And we saw Micah come in and out and back in again throughout the course of the week. Is he okay for this week?
Yeah, so Micah, Cedric and Cole Tab are, all guys that were kind of day to day. I think they'll have an opportunity to play, but they got to progress throughout this week, and hopefully we'll have all 3 of them, or maybe 2 of them, and we'll just see. They're working really hard in their rehab, and they'll be close.
John?
Coach, looking at the North Carolina State defense, I guess the takeaways come first to mind. I mean, in the last 4 years, they're up near the top in terms of, I want to say, interceptions, and then they've got 2 or 3 defensive touchdowns this year. How much of that do you take note of as you're thinking about how you might put together the game plan, without asking you to disclose your calls? What do you, when you look at their defense, you think about what you're going to do with this particular team? How does it go?
They're unique in that they're a 3-man front, so they run like a 3-3 stack defense, and they're very versatile, and they got a lot of people that they can move around. And they can pressure out of it. They can drop 8. So I think they can create a lot of confusion for quarterbacks in terms of what they're doing, because with the multiple backers and defensive backs, There's just a lot of things you can do, and they do a great job of mixing it up. And consequently, you have seen turnovers. That's been something that they've always created, and that's a huge part of a defense. If you can create turnovers, you got a great opportunity to win. So they're definitely a challenging team to prepare for.
Steve?
That's right, kind of following up on Troy's question. I know last week you were saying you were hoping that in the interim, but before your bye week, that you'd get some guys back. Besides the running back room, I would guess the secondary is also a spot. Are you going to get guys back this Saturday, or might you have to wait till after the bye?
Yeah, so we got, Scotty Edwards was able to play, and Aaron Morris. So those were two huge guys that we got back. And they helped us out a lot. So that was huge in the secondary. And there's still a number of guys that we're hoping to get back soon. Levi Rogers is our center, and we'll hope to get him back soon. And then the two running backs, Cedric Irvin and Cole Tabb, they're very important to our scheme and our system. And there's some other players, but it's the next man up. So people are going to have to step up and fill in, and that's why you recruit and you create as much depth as you possibly can, because it's a physical sport, and you got to be able to have enough depth to make it through a Power 4 season.
Ben?
Yeah, kind of the midway point here of the season. Just kind of what's you've played enough kind of league games, ACC games. Just kind of what are your thoughts on the conference so far? Kind of midway point of the season here. Yeah,
really good. The teams that we've played are I've talked about who they are and their schedule, and we got some good teams ahead of us. And so yeah, I've been impressed with the ACC. You knew about teams like Clemson, of course, and Virginia Tech, really talented, and then you have an SMU team that is really talented and have done a great job. So those teams are all really good. And then the other teams, are solid as well, that you don't necessarily hear a lot about. They're well coached and have done a great job and having unique systems and strategies. So I've been very impressed with the ACC. Now, obviously, we don't play everybody because it's such a large conference, but the teams that I've seen on tape have been impressive as well.
Troy?
Obviously, one of the big subplots for NC State this week has been the quarterback position. You talked about CJ earlier, but obviously Grayson McCall was supposed to be quarterback one, got hurt again. Now he's retired. Looking at NC State from when McCall was taking snaps and now looking at NC State now, any major differences or any major similarities between the Wolfpack when Grayson was running the show and the Wolfpack now?
Well, I mean, their system is their system, so there's not going to be massive changes. There'll be slight things that they do, but this kid's really talented. He's got a big arm. He sees the field well. He's agile. Yeah, so their system remains the same. They just weigh it a little bit differently with one guy to the next. But you train two quarterbacks to be able to play in the system at least, and he's done a great job, and obviously a really talented young man.
John?
Coach, can you share a little bit about what that system is? When I look at them, I look at number 10, right? The slot guy Concepcion, but what do you see in their passing schemes?
Number 10 is a big part of it. They move him around. They do such a great job. He's an impactful player. And sometimes when guys like that, you can take them away a little bit by coverage things that you do. They do such a great job of moving him around from different positions and different parts of the field that it's difficult to game plan too much against him because of the run fits and how it affects that. So he's a huge part of that. I know he's a big concern for us. But like I said, the quarterback I think is a really good player, and I don't study that side of the ball as much as the other side of the ball, but I know it's very talented and a challenging scheme.
Ben?
yeah. Just kind of how are you kind of assessing things defense wise for the team midway point? Obviously some injuries, but they got a key goal line stop against Wake on Saturday. Picks a strip for a touchdown, and then Nicholson wrestling the ball out of the guy for an INT. Just how do you kind of feel the defense has kind of come along midway through, particularly with some of the challenges that they've had to deal with health
I
wise.
think that, yeah, I'm really proud of what they've done in terms of sticking with it. And, you know, it's a little bit of a different team when you have injuries, and we've had young guys that have stepped in. And I think, you know, you hit on the major points. I mean, it wasn't perfect, and obviously we can play better, but the defensive score off the turnover was huge. I thought the goal line stand at the 1 gave us a chance, unable to tie the game up. And then I thought the stand inside the 10 when it forced a field goal and gave us an opportunity was huge as well. So those are things. And, you know, the play that Brandon made, Nicholson's one of the best plays of the year in terms of playing the ball and coming up with a big time play. So, you know, you see those, see young guys that are making plays, you see the resiliency and the toughness. Now, obviously, there's a couple plays that we wish we had back on defense, but for the most part, I'm proud of what they've done. I mean, the week before we were so shorthanded secondary wise that I was proud of how we finished the game against SMU. Although obviously the start wasn't great, but they got another challenge this week, and they'll be ready to roll.
John?
Coach, you told us early on 4 or 5 weeks ago that ACC would of necessity be a challenge because in the Pac-12 you knew the coaches, you know, year by year you got sort of a feel for them. This is your first go around with some of these coaches. I've been impressed with Coach Clausen, and Coach Dorn is the next one to come up. Have you found it challenging to learn about what they do? Have you, I mean, they have longer track records, these last couple of coaches. Has that been particularly challenging, or is it just just another week for you?
Yeah, no, I admire what they've done, and you know, Dave is an academic institution like Wake Forest, and what he's been able to do there has been impressive. And you know, he's unique in terms of his offensive scheme and the slow mesh, and I've always impressed with people. And then North Carolina State's he's done a great job there. I mean, they've been really good on defense throughout the years. Been an outstanding, a difficult place to play. So, yeah, I've been impressed with really everybody that we've played. Some really good coaches. They do a great job in recruiting, and a lot of great venues that are difficult to play at.
Any other questions for Coach Taylor? All right.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Go Card.
All right, we are back with Brandon Nicholson. We will take questions the same way we did for Coach Taylor using the raise hand function on Zoom. Ben Parker, you're up first.
What's up, Brandon? I got the easiest question of the day here. Just walk us through that interception you got on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously the receiver came hard off the ball, so as soon as he came off the ball, I really turned open and ran. And great pressure from D-line. Got pressure on the quarterback. He forced a quick throw. And obviously balls in the air, just I was able to track it and then make a good play on the ball.
John?
Brandon, there's been a lot of injuries, a lot of guys down in the defensive back room, which created opportunity for you and for Cam. What's that been like? Has it been like, okay, more questions for the coach, or is it like, oh, this is my opportunity? What's it been like to get this opportunity?
Yeah, I'm just first off totally grateful for the opportunity. You know, obviously coming in as a freshman and just working, you know, being able to be blessed with the opportunity is something that I don't take for granted. And you know, I tried to maintain a routine, you know, all through the season, whether I was playing or not. And so now that the opportunities come, I feel like, you know, me and Cam are prepared and we're ready. You know, coaches have faith in us. Other teammates on the defense and our whole coaching staff have faith in us. So we just have to go out there, trust our coaching, trust our techniques, and just go out there and perform.
Troy?
Yeah, Brandon, obviously the SMU game didn't get off to the start that you would have liked to. How were you and Brandon and the rest of the young secondary kind of able to help stabilize things a little bit since that point and improve from that point on?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously we're secondary has a bunch of young guys in there due to injuries. I think, every game and every play for us is a learning experience. And so, we're gonna have, troubles and we're gonna, have some rough experiences, but I think primarily we just have to learn from and get better every day, every practice, every game. And so, I think we just keep building on every game and we'll start getting better and better.
Been impressed by your tackling in the open field, by the way. Is that something that just kind of gets developed, or how do you kind of hone that skill a little bit to the level that you seem to have shown to this point?
Yeah, definitely developed, especially from since I was in high school. We focus on tackling drills constantly in practice and also at least once weekly in our position drills. And so I think that's something I've improved a lot since I've gotten here from high school. And so I think it's been great to see it really pay off on the field for me.
Thank you, Troy. Harold?
Hi, I was just wondering, what's the earliest time you've ever played a football game, and how are you going to get ready for, a 9 a.m. body clock game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the earliest time will definitely be one of these recent games we played at 12. Here obviously in high school, most of our games are going to be nighttime, 7 o'clock, and so I really credit Coach Taylor. With our travel, he's done a great job of just keeping us prepared and getting us accustomed to these travel games. And so I think this game's going to be no different. Obviously, we have an earlier game. And so, coaching staff is stressed, getting up with a lot of energy, being ready, even from practice from day to day in our meetings. And so I have full faith in him and the other coaches that by the time we have to go out there for 9 o'clock Pacific time, we'll be ready to play.
Thank you, Harold. Ben?
Yeah, just kind of talk about for you personally, just kind of how you feel you've settled in here and what's kind of been the biggest kind of adjustment from high school to college now that you're midway through the season here.
Yeah, definitely biggest adjustment has been the speed of the game, especially a lot of these offenses we played are really tempo and it's really going. And so just getting adjusted to that and just, settling in, obviously first time playing, you're gonna have some nerves, you're gonna have, some possible doubts, but especially for me after these first few games, you start to settle in, and feel like you belong, and feel like you can come here and make plays and make an impact. And so obviously that's part of the coaching staff, giving us the confidence and our teammates too. I just feel like, as each game goes on, you get more confident in the system and prepared to play.
John?
Brandon, without asking you to divulge your trade secrets or your preparation secrets, can you share with us a little bit how you prepare to go up against receivers? I mean, do you have your own, like what's your unique preparation for a team that you're about to play, like North Carolina State? Extra film? Do you try to go over in your mind kind of what the routes are? I was impressed when Richard Sherman, I didn't know this when he was at Stanford, but the film work that he did apparently was exceptional. And I would assume all you guys do that, but can you give us a window about your preparation for a team with multiple good receivers like NC State?
Yeah, film obviously for everybody on the team is a focal part. You need it to be able to go out there and succeed. And so for me personally, obviously it starts on a Monday, just trying to familiarize myself with the opponent. And, throughout the week, obviously from scout teams and every meeting we have, the coaches only put so much more information into us. And so obviously there's a little extra film study from me, watching over practice. Me and teammates getting together, asking them what they see, what other coaches see. And so just by the time we get to that game time, you feel as prepared as you can be and ready to go.
Troy?
Taking a peek at the NC State offense, Concepcion kind of seems to be their catalyst a little bit. But what are some of the other guys that in your mind and checking out the film, the Wolfpack seems to make that offense go?
Yeah, like you said, slot receiver. Concepcion is obviously really good, big part of the offense, moving around different spots. Look to get him the ball. Obviously their quarterback. After the change, he's come in and done a really good job with that team. And so obviously he's another part that we have to focus on. The tight end, number 15. They move him around, obviously to the field and not. And then both of their outside receivers are just great at running routes and making plays when the ball's up in there. And so I think obviously it's a full offense that we had to prepare for. And so, we'll have our hands full with it, but like I said, by the time Saturday comes, I'm sure we'll be prepared to play.
John?
Yeah, speaking about their quarterback, the true freshman, CJ Bailey, can run a little bit. Obviously, he's been throwing it well. What extra consideration is there for you at your position as to a quarterback who can hurt you in the run game, or when he scrambles can hurt you?
Yeah, I think from the corner position, what you take away from that primarily is that, you're gonna have to be on top of your game when it comes to covering downfield. Knowing that, if he is able to get outside the pocket and, create some extra time, you might be in coverage for a little bit extra longer. And so, you can't relax, you can't slip up, you have to be focused for the entire play. And so obviously that's a great skill for him and that team. And so we just have to be ready for it and prepare for it on our end.
Ben?
Kind of a tactical question here. When you're lining up on any particular defensive play, are there any what kind of audibles are you possibly making, or are you always kind of knowing what kind of coverage you're going to make? Just kind of how do you maybe make adjustments based upon what you see the offense doing? Just kind of walk us through that kind of side of things as best you can.
Yeah, in terms of like, audibles or any type of communication, that's primarily really a whole defensive thing. So whether the whole defense has to make a check or a call, or maybe just me and the safety just being on the same page. Obviously with different formations, we might want to do different things, but I think primarily, just always communicating, whether it be with me and the safety or the nickel or like the entire defense, just making sure we're on the same page and ready to execute the play call.
Troy?
Yeah, Brandon, kind of a haul from Memphis to Raleigh, but Stanford still playing in the South, close enough for some folks to be able to make the trip and come see you play.
Yeah, I have some family, so my parents will be there. They've done a great job. I'm so grateful for them coming out to a couple games here and a couple games on the road. So I got to see them a good bit of time, and I have some other close family in Virginia that'll also be making the trip down there. So it'll be good to see them as well.
Any other questions for Brandon? All right, thank you. We will be right back with Sam Roush.
Thank you.
Hey guys.
All right, we'll finish up the day with Sam Roush. We'll take questions the same way we did for both Brandon and Troy. Harold?
Hi, Sam. First of all, that AM start, I get a bit stinging for that. And then secondly, is your fourth trip to the Eastern time zone in like a span of 7 weeks. Just is that starting to impact the team at all, or how are you guys kind of going through that?
I missed the first part of your question, but
Oh, sorry. The first part was just the 9 a.m. start time. Just how are you guys kind of preparing for that?
oh, yeah, I mean, we're all trying to go to bed earlier. I know myself personally, I try to go to bed by like 9 or 9:30 and then wake up maybe 15 or 30 minutes earlier than I have been. But yeah, we're not too worried about the early start time. I mean, it's football. We're gonna wake up and play ball. I don't know. Someone said in the meeting today, it's like, oh, there's no time too early to go run through somebody's chest. So I think that's kind of the attitude we've got going into that. And then obviously going to the East Coast, fourth time in 7 weeks. I don't know. I mean, it is like different with the time change. But we shift our whole schedule so that we're still on. Usually we'll do that so we're still on Pacific time. So that's what we did for the last 3 weeks. And this time we obviously won't do that because we played so early. But yeah, I mean, it's just we know we've got the bye week next week, so we can really, I mean, we can really go all out. We're not gonna be worried about conserving anything. Not that anybody is ever, anyways. But
Ben?
Yeah, it seems like you've gotten a little bit more involved in the offense the last couple of weeks, receiving wise. What do you think has kind of gone into that?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of those routes are kind of check downs or over the middle, short little dump offs. So I guess defenses have been kind of avoiding the middle a little more than they have in the past. So that just opens up those opportunities. So obviously quarterbacks are taking advantage of that.
John?
Sam, a background question for you, and I've probably some point in the past asked you this, but just to benefit everybody, a lot of your family members play defense. Merlin Olsen, your grandfather Phil Olsen, your dad, for example, at Duke. What attracted you to offense as opposed to defense? I'm sure. I know you played at a high level defensively in high school too. What turned you on to offense?
Well, I was a real big Stanford fan in middle school and then high school, obviously, as well. Stanford has some pretty good tight ends come through. I don't know if y'all notice that. I always kind of had the size. I was always the biggest kid in my class, and I played basketball, so tight end felt like a pretty natural transition to that.
Troy?
Two things here for you. First, your touchdown capped off that 15 play 99-yard drive that was so crucial, and a couple of speed bumps along the way, but Stanford able to overcome that. Take me through that drive. Take us through that drive as best as you remember it, and how much of a statement, perhaps, and hopefully, the Stanford offense made by making that drive, and perhaps set itself up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, 99-yard touchdown drive. It's pretty gritty. Everybody was tired. We were running a tempo offense too, so I know I can speak for myself. I was pretty gassed. I was excited to score so we could get off the field. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a gritty drive. You could kind of tell defense was tired, offense was tired too. But at that point, it kind of just comes down to who wants it more. And I think on that drive, we showed that.
Second, how did you celebrate National Tight Ends Day?
I watched the NFL tight ends ball out. We had a lot of touchdowns in the tight end rooms across the NFL yesterday.
Steve?
Yeah, Sam, excuse me, kind of following up on that. And don't be afraid to say Sam Roush, but I'm sure you haven't seen all the other 16 starting tight ends in the ACC, but I'm sure you've seen a few either in person or on video. Who are the top three tight ends in the ACC?
Oh, I don't even know. Obviously we watch a lot of film on opposing defenses, and sometimes I watch the tight ends as well. I feel like I'd be an idiot if I didn't say myself.
Okay.
I'd put myself on that list somewhere. We were watching film this last week. I thought the Virginia has a really good tight end, number 16. I'm blanking on his name, but I thought he was really good as well. And then I don't know, there's a third in there too. But
Okay, fair enough.
Ben?
Yeah, you guys have had obviously some difficult, kind of going through a bit of a difficult stretch here, a few blowout losses, and then a narrow loss to Wake Forest. The human nature for a team like yourself to maybe kind of doubt yourself, or maybe kind of question whether you guys can win another game or something like that. Just kind of talk about kind of what's the level of belief among the players right now, and what's kind of the mental state of the team as you guys are trying to get out the schneid here and pick up a third win.
yeah, well, it's all one game seasons for us, right? So it's 12 one-game seasons, and then hopefully bowl game at the end. So we're not really thinking about past weeks, right? You watch the film on Sunday and you learn from that, and then you move on. And so this week, we're not thinking about the team that we played last week, right? It's all about NC State. So
John?
Sam, I would think with the success you've had the last couple of weeks with the number of catches, just a touchdown last week, that you'd be hungry for more. Like I want more. Do you find yourself thinking in these days now when you're getting more involved, a lot more involved, that I want to show more in practice, I want to show some different routes, or I want to talk to my tight end coach? Because I would think that for you, it's like this is just the start. I would like more. How do you get more? How do you get more targets?
I mean, I'm just trying to do what's best for the team. So the coaches put together a great game plan, and it's not my job to be a part of that process, right? They put together the game plan, and then I'm gonna run the plays to the best of my ability, and that's how I'm gonna help the team. And if getting me the ball is in the game plan, then obviously, like, I'll be excited about that, right? I mean, that's everybody wants to get the ball, but uh, yeah. So I mean, I'm just trying to run the plays to the best of my ability.
Steve?
Sam, I'm not going to ask again. Sorry, I'm not going to ask you to say whom you prefer at quarterback, Elijah or Ashton. I'm not going to put you on a spot like that. But does the offense change considerably to a minor extent, or not at all, when different quarterbacks are playing?
Yeah, I mean we've got a great quarterback room, and guys are battling for the spot. So I'm not really going to speak on that, but yeah, I'm really proud of our quarterbacks, and I feel comfortable that they can all do the job to the best of their ability.
Fair enough.
Ben?
Take it midterms of either just concluded or are concluding. Just how good does it feel or will it feel to get those behind you?
Um, I take a pretty light course load in season, and then I'll load up in the off season. So I actually don't have midterms this quarter.
Oh wow, lucky you.
Lucky me, but I can speak for some of my teammates. I think they're pretty excited about that. But yeah, I mean, obviously in season focus is on football.
John?
Sam, I asked Brandon Nicholson, who was on just before you, this question as well. And I'm not asking you to divulge trade secrets or your personal way of preparing, but just take us through a week of your preparing against the opponent you're playing. I know blocking schemes are part of this, but do you size up certain personnel? Do you look at extra film? What is your preparation for a week in which you want to have another week of 6 or 7 catches?
Yep. Well, I try to come in on Monday and watch some film early before we meet with the coaches, and then obviously throughout the week, when I have free time, I'll try to get in there and watch them as well. And a lot of the time, I'll watch by, I'll watch by formation, and then towards the end of the week, I'll try watching by player as well. So PFF does these really cool cut-ups where they can highlight some of the best plays and the worst plays by certain players in run defense and pass defense and pass rush and all these different categories. So towards the end of the week, I'll try to watch more of that. And then earlier in the week, I'm kind of looking at scheme and formations. We do that with our coaches as well.
Troy?
Yeah, Sam, it's kind of odd this season because Stanford's facing a lot of opponents which it doesn't have much history against or any history at all, and that's for obvious reasons. How has that kind of affected the dynamic of the season a little bit? You can't really rely on, oh, we lost to these guys 3 years ago, or we killed them 3 years ago, and we can do it again. The unfamiliarity of opponents, how has that kind of affected the week to week dynamic maybe of the season a little bit, depending upon the opponent?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. There's no like historic with most of these teams, there's not a lot of historic matchups that you can point to. For me personally, I think it's kind of cool. I grew up watching the ACC. Obviously, dad played at Duke. So I grew up watching all these teams, and um so it's kind of fun to now get to play all of them. It's too bad we don't play Duke or Carolina this year, but I think next year we might have them in the schedule.
At Carolina next year.
Yep.
John?
Sam, you told me last week that George Kittle is a tight end that you would like to emulate, or you admire a lot of what he does. Is it just the fact that he's a complete tight end? Is it the energy and the personality aspect? Because he is a team leader, we can all see that. What is it about him that sets him apart from the other good tight ends that are in the NFL that you might admire just as much?
Yep. Well, I mean, he's the full package, right? Being an amazing run blocker and being able to catch the ball and get vertical and make people miss. That's kind of what I aspire to be. Just kind of the do it all guy. So guys like George Kittle and Laporta and um, a lot of those guys are really, really good.
Any other questions for Sam? All right, thank you so much. We hope you tune into our game at 9 a.m. Pacific against NC State.